It's not currently done consistently across our state, but a new board created by the legislature will start its work next month to standardize the way Arizona monitors and treats sex offenders. The Sex Offender Management Board will have more than 25 members appointed by various state agencies, the Arizona Supreme Court, the governor, the legislature, a state prosecutors group, and experts.
And speaking of prosecutors, Pinal County Attorney Brad Miller joining us on the Newsmaker line this morning to talk about this new board. Brad, we really appreciate you and your time today. So let's talk about why this board is needed. What are some of the inconsistencies that we've seen in handling sex offenders? And is this going on at both the law enforcement and the judicial level?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about this. The biggest issue right now is that there are no standards. So we have 15 different counties in Arizona. And currently, there are no set standards on how sex offenders should be managed, what the treatment options are, what provider options are, or what the requirements for certain resources are. And so the point of this board is to get the experts from all across the state together to start deciding on these standards.
So is it not set by state law, how we have to get registered, how people have to get registered as sex offenders and how they have to be monitored? It's not consistent in state law right now?
Yeah, I know. That's very confusing, but the answer is no.
Wow.
And that's why we're bringing this board up. That's the hardest part about messaging this entire board is people are, I think, shocked to say that there are no standards now. I thought there were. Well, unfortunately, there's not, and that's what we're trying to fix. So when I took office in January, one of the things that I looked for is where are gaps in our current registration laws, where are things that we can protect the community. And I hired a fantastic, very talented individual by the name of Beth Golden, who has over 2 decades in monitoring and handling sex offenders on the probation side. And so with her expertise and the expertise of Senator Bullock, who was willing to sponsor this bill, we decided to propose this, try to get funding for it, and this is kind of the product of all of that.
Now, you said there are no standards here, so does that include the crimes that qualify someone to be registered as a sex offender, or is that clear?
No, those are clear. So I want to make a distinction between the crime and putting somebody on probation, so kind of the law enforcement side, and then what happens after the sentence. So once the judge issues a sentence, say it's 5 years, 15 years in prison, and then lifetime probation, which many of these sex offenses carry, what does that lifetime probation or that 10 years probation look like? That's the piece that we're talking about, and that's a piece where there are no set standards on what the treatment options are, what the expectations for recidivism rates. So one of the places that we decided to take this, and Senator Bullock and Beth Golden worked really hard on this, was the Sex Offender Management Board that occurs in Colorado. They've been so successful that you're looking at single-digit recidivism rates, in some cases as low as 2% for sex offenses. That's the goal here in Arizona, is to, if we're going to allow somebody to be on probation, then we're going to give them an opportunity and those treatment options. We're going to follow through on those treatment options to ensure the recidivism rate is in those low single digits.
We're talking with Pinal County Attorney Brad Miller about the newly created, it's going to be created next month, actually, the Sex Offender Board, Management Board. And I was going to ask you before you said, that low recidivism rate in Colorado, is there any proven successful treatment for certain types of sex offenders like child predators? Because I've heard for years that there's like no way of bringing them back.
Yeah, and we disagree with that. I mean, human beings obviously can be difficult dealing with sometimes, but if somebody really wants to change, then they can change. And so what some of these treatment options provide is that if a person wants to change their behavior, wants to change their mindset, then we allow them those opportunities to get that. And there are treatment providers that can provide those types of services. Now, will it always be successful? It won't be. This is not something that's 100%. And for those very violent sex offenders, child molesters, child traffickers, we're not talking about those individuals because, at least in Pinal County, the expectation is they're going to be in prison either for the rest of their life or close to the rest of their life.
Well, if there can be reform, then we want to find a way to make that happen
Absolutely.
for those who it would work for.
Especially if they're going to be in society again when when their sentence is done. Once again, thank you so much. Brad Miller there is the Pinal County attorney, the top prosecutor for that county.
Thanks for watching Arizona's Morning News. Click to watch more from KTAR News and hit the button in the middle to subscribe.